Congressman Khanna of the beautiful state of California get his views on these investigations as to the origins of the virus. It doesn't look either way, Congressman, like the Chinese are going to cooperate. So is all of this a moot point?
Well, Neil, it's very concerning. I support the bipartisan effort to investigate it, and we need transparency. And there are a lot of unanswered questions where it originated, and if it did originate in the lab, why did that happen? Was it an accident, or was there any intentionality to developing a biological weapon? So there are a lot of unanswered questions. I absolutely support a full investigation.
You know, up until this week, Congressman, the president had sort of put his trust and faith in the World Health Organization to continue to try to investigate this. But he eschewed that, instead going to a number of U.S. entities to explore it. Is it a sign that he lacks faith in the WHO? Do you?
Well, I have the most trust in our intelligence. They're the best in the world, and I think the president is right to ask them to do an investigation. But we need to continue to work with the World Health Organization to put pressure on China to be transparent. They're not being transparent. This pandemic has taken over 500,000 Americans' lives. It's wreaked havoc in places around the world, India, Brazil. We as a nation, a community of nations, need to demand that China be transparent about the origins, and they're not being.
I'd like to switch gears on the president, announcing his budget today for this next fiscal year and years on out. Without going into too many details, which they'll outline in the next hour or so, the fact of the matter is it's going to mean deficits, and big ones at that, anywhere from 1.5 to maybe as high as 1.8 trillion, quite a few years. I'm just wondering if that worries you, that we can't seem to get this under control. And by the way, I've mentioned this to Republicans as well. They're fine ones to talk about fiscal austerity and all of that when it grew under them as well. It seems like this is out of control now. Does that worry you?
Well, of course I care about deficits, but we're coming out of a pandemic and we're going to have extraordinary growth. Some people are projecting almost 10%. And I think right now is the time to make sure that we're getting people back to work, and that's an investment in childcare, that we're getting people hooked up to the internet, that's an investment in broadband. And then that growth, I think, will eventually pay down the deficit. And we have to look at raising taxes on the ultra rich and on corporations. So I would be concerned if you were having sustainable deficits for 10 years. That's not what's going to happen. I think we're going to have extraordinary growth, which will start to lower the deficits.
Well, that's not in this budget, sir. I mean, the fact is they are envisioning, $1 trillion plus deficits for at least the next 6 years, likely the next 10. And you're right, you might see some growth that will ease that, but you'd think that would be reflected in growth assumptions in this budget. And I guess the fact that they're not doing that leads me to believe that the growth that you talked about, and you're quite right, the second quarter estimates of GDP growth are about 10%, but that's over what was virtually nothing going on a year ago in the same quarter. So is that really doable?
Well, we have to see. I mean, obviously, the president's being conservative in his growth estimates, and you're right that he's projecting the deficits with the growth factored in. But I think the two things to look at, Neil, are inflation and the interest rates. And if those start to increase dramatically, then I think there is a concern and an adjustment. But as Chairman Powell has said, it's transitory. When people are now starting to shop, they're getting on airplanes. When I was flying back to California, the planes were full. That suggests that you're going to have transitory inflation. The question is, will we get back to normal in the fall? I hope we will.